Hey guys, it's NeverSink, and today I want to show how my journey through Lake of Calamdor has been going so far. I've been playing on a Lightning Conduit build. I started on that, I league started on that and played it pretty much until today. Currently I'm level 93, 94. I've defeated a bunch of bosses such as Uber Elder, Cirrus, Shaper, obviously, and some others, and I've been just farming tier 15 maps and tier 16 maps and upwards. My atlas is pretty much complete, and I want to just show off how the build performs and how you can play it for yourself and how it highlights some details on that. So the build, we're gonna run a random canyon map. We're gonna run it quickly. I'm not gonna go through all of the details. I'm not gonna go through all of the mechanics. I'm gonna reduce the volume in game a little bit there. Right, so I hope it's not too loud. So there's some metamorphs here. The build is a bit of a two-button gameplay, but there are some tricks to make it more one-button in many cases. As you see, it's clearing quite fast. Being a little bit sloppy with the clear here, but there's a Droughtbringer. Basically nuke it out from orbit. The damage is quite solid. We're using Annihilating Light, and this is a non-crit build. It does shatter so we can talk about that in a bit. But the basic gameplay is you place an Orb of Storm, then things become shocked around you, and then you can basically spam your Lightning Conduit and everything around you dies. The Orb of Storm has a lot of AoE and chaining, so that the bosses die quickly as well. We can also place a Metamorph down, quickly grab some bonus loot, fractured weapon, gonna grab some currency there. Metamorphs are sometimes a little bit dangerous, but most of the time they also die very fast. Yeah, this is the basic build gameplay. Now you can farm a lot faster by actually playing a little bit less sloppily. I'm gonna quickly go over the build zone. Let me quickly discuss that. Alright, so the basic idea for this build to function, you need to shock enemies. We shock enemies using our Orb of Storms. Our Orb of Storms is linked to increase AoE with unbound elements and chain. You see there's still no quality, no outquote, no vacant gems. This creates this huge Orb of Storms, and this basically chains to other enemies, splits to other enemies, and shocks pretty much everything around. We also get elemental proliferation from our tree in order to, or shock proliferation from our tree in order to improve our clearing quite a bit. When you cast a lightning spell, the Orb of Storms zaps enemies nearby. Since Conduit removes shock from enemies and only hits enemies that are shocked, we always use our Orb of Storms before casting with groups. But also, since we shock with every enemy on hit, we can just Frostblink for small groups of enemies or just move forward, and with Vortex, it'll actually also shock them. So you don't need to cast an Orb of Storm on any enemy. We also have a lot of cast speed, also have some onslaught on my build and some cast speed on my flask. So on practice it's like 0.25 cast speed or something, so it's really, really fast. And on top of that, there's some other tricks I can talk about in, what the hell? Talk about in a bit. Right, 1 second, quick trade break. Right, there we go. Should have D&D on that. Alright, so next up, our main link is Lightning Conduit, Hyperthermia, Elemental Focus, added lightning damage, Energy Leech, and Lightning Pan. I haven't really investigated the out qualities and Awakening Gems much. There's a lot of potential there. We also use some other links such as our auras, Determination, Purity of Elements, and Grace. I also run Molten Shell, Cast with Damage Taken. Yeah, I also have Conductivity on hit with my Frostblink and Vortex. And finally, we have a Rest with Divine Blessing and, Cast on Death Portal that I've been putting to good use when still playing around and discovering this build and seeing how it can make it work quite well. Regarding our gear, I'm going to go over some basics. Basically, you want to have evasion and energy shield on your helmet, gloves, body armor, and boots in order to get them spell suppression mastery. You want to get as much spell suppression as possible. We use just 3 uniques right now. That's Annihilating Light for triple the damage. It is very effective. I'm going to talk about the resistance in a second. We also run Augur Mortis. Augur Mortis saps enemies in chilling areas, since we have a lot of ailment effectiveness. We apply 20% saps, which means enemies deal up to 20% less damage. Really good. Also, it increases the damage on enemies in chilled area, which is another small. It's kind of like a pseudo more multiplier, so it works additively with shock, but still, it's a big damage boost. That's a takeaway. It's a big damage boost. Core of the Void is also incredibly good in this build. Core of the Void means all of our chilled enemies deal 20% less damage, another huge survival boost, and it has corpse destruction, which is so good. With corpse destruction, we basically never have to suffer from toxic, from a lot of corpse explosions, from porcupines. You just really get it. It's insanely good. If you have, it's kind of like a late game investment, but it's really good. Everything else is just resistances and stats. I have this amulet with a bunch of stats there. The current investment, I think I'm around 12 to 13 divines into the build that I've spent on that. You can definitely spend a lot more. The gear is like suboptimal, like the body armor is just something I make do with that. But yeah, let's also take a look at the quick look at the skill tree. We are using the Elementalist Ascendancy to not have any troubles with shock. We will shock any boss for 65% damage or any enemy. Our shock is not dependent on the damage, it's only dependent upon the shock effect or ailment effect on our build. We also use Shape of Winter to apply a chill there. Incredibly effective, 40% slow for every enemy out there. Maybe a little bit less for bosses, but still. Mastermind of Discord and Heart of Destruction gives us a lot of exposure on enemies to help with resistances, and gives some single target damage in AoE. Really good for Orb of Storms and for Conduit in general to improve the clear and single target damage. When it comes to exposure, the ideal version to apply that is using a large cluster gem. We're using Corrosive Elements, Doriani's lesson here. This is the important combination. It's quite hard to hit. You can craft it with 2 slot fossils, with life and I think elemental in there. I think it's like 50 chances to craft that. You can also buy that. This is one of the more expensive investments, but it's quite hard to craft. Alternatively, you can run an Archdemon Crown to apply exposure. You can apply exposure yourself with like Hydrosphere. You can also, until you run Augur Mortis, apply exposure over an Eldritch Enchantment. I'm also running 3 Grand Spectrums. 2 of them give me elemental resistance per Grand Spectrum, and 1 gives me additional endurance charges. Other than that, the tree is quite common. We have some Eldritch Battery for casting things with our ES. You want some ES on your gear, and to use stress using our ES. We have spell suppression everywhere. We are not going for crit. The important masteries are lightning is this non-crit is lucky. Lightning, shock spread, and overshock. We also have elemental overload there, and the rest is just classical stuff like ailment improvements, mana reservation, stuff like that. Oh yeah, and you also want Sublime Form when you switch to Annihilating Light, so that you can run Purity of Elements. With that, you can also run Lee Shade, and Lee Shade is just awesome. So I'm gonna make a quick sweep over the gear so that you can pause and watch it yourself. I'm gonna post the POB later as well. What else is there to say? I think the build is really fun. It performs decent with clear. It's not the best clear build, but it's quite fast. It's really fast. So I've played a lot slower builds, and it also takes on bosses rather easily. I can absolutely recommend you to give this build a try. So I do have to warn you, it takes like 12 to 15x to get to my investment. By the way, the onslaught and hit shrink is not necessary. It's just something I snagged early on. It's really up to you if you want to go for that or not. Yeah, pretty much. You can also use Storm Brand instead of Orb of Storms. I personally like it less. I think you can switch for it from bosses like Maven that teleport around a lot, but generally speaking, Orb of Storms is incredibly quick to cast. You can just cast and move on. It's really fast. You almost don't see its cast speed. There's also this little trick where you can cast it and blink, and then your cast time is pretty much instant. You can also rest and blink, which makes this cast time instant, so it kind of interrupts it. You can also keep casting and blink. So Frostblink is very powerful as a movement and gameplay enhancement. Yeah, that is pretty much. Oh yeah, and just since this question is being asked right now, Conduit itself can't shock. Conduit itself will only hit shocked enemies and will remove shock from them. So Orb of Storms applies shock every time you cast a lightning spell. Conduit is a lightning spell. Conduit removes the shock. Then Orb of Storms applies the shock again, and this basically removes, applies, removes, applies, removes, applies, and it works quite well. So yeah, so far my PoB DPS should be around 10 million Shaper DPS. Last time I checked, plus minus a little bit. You can remove also the elemental focus for something else in order to have slightly better application of sap. Even so, it seems that with shock we sap most bosses for 20%. Nevertheless, I tried it out on the Uber Elder before that, on the Elder, worked quite well. So I saw some enemies that actually sapped for like, that sapped actually for like 15% or something like that. Yeah, there's still a few improvements that you can do here. You can definitely get more spell suppression, get more life, get better rares, get corruptions, get more juice. Maybe consider going for survivor. No, wait, for cowards legacy in order to go low life. There's like a bunch of things you can try to improve. Everything is a little bit like in this half finished state, where the build is like 3 days or 4 days old, so it is definitely improvable. In order to finish the rundown, I'm just gonna run a random canyon map. I hope it won't murder me completely, but I think we'll be fine. Canyon is, sorry, not canyon, a random Drox map. Drox is fairly tanky, so let's see how this performs. So I'm gonna activate Rats and Dash in order to have this aura on me. For extra damage, we have some more metamorphs here. And you see shock is being applied quite well. Also spreads decently. This guy ran out of the Orb of Storms AoE. This sometimes happens, it's a little bit annoying. Something you should... Thanks for the raid, Asmodeus. We are currently explaining a small build for my current Lightning Conduit setup, which is why I'm showcasing the map. So this goes into a video highlight. I'm gonna greet you guys in a second. Welcome, I hope you're having a wonderful day and enjoying or somewhat enjoying the league. There was a rogue exile, tormented, possessed. But yeah, the damage is really great. I'm shocking with Orb of Storms. Okay, so I'm activating my auras again, my reds again, placing new Orb of Storms. Sometimes dash or move forward to enable Vortex on him. As you see, he is sapped for 20%, and that's it. So the map has 30%, 31% more HP, and faster buff expiration. Otherwise, nothing too special. He was, yeah, was reasonably fast. For the investment, definitely quite a strong build. Any map mods I can run. I don't recommend running Reflect. You can definitely, well, you will die. You can definitely work around that and use masteries or use rings and so forth. So Reflect is a no-go. I don't like running aura effectiveness and less recovery. I don't like running no leech and no region, but both of these work. So these are just things that I can run. I just try to avoid multiple of them. Well, and then classical stuff like temp chains, minus stress, things you don't like running, but you can still run if you want. But technically, Reflect is the only thing you really don't want to run. Any YouTube guide on this build? I've just explained it, and I'm gonna highlight this snippet after the stream and put it on YouTube, so that you can watch it afterwards. I've explained the gearing process and so forth. Oh yeah, when it comes to leveling, I really recommend you to check out the skill tree by DS Lily or by Xai. Both of them made decent skill trees. You can also check the guide by Zizaran. This is how you start out with the build, because you can't start out with Annihilating Light. Before you run Annihilating Light, you can run something like a Singularity and any random shield. But try to aim for Energy Shield, Evasion, Base, and Suppression early on. And try to get Purity of Elements early on, because running Lee Shade in the current meta will make your life so much easier for you. To switch to Annihilating Light, you basically just need Grand Spectrums. So these are somewhat expensive, but I think you can switch on Annihilating Light with like a 3 to 4 divine budget. You don't need like all of the improvements I have made. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this guide. I hope you'll find it useful. I definitely can recommend playing around with that once you have your build worked out and everything fleshed out. It's very satisfying to play. It also hits like a truck. So yeah, thanks.